This is ESPN, the Total Sports Network.
It's a beautiful morning on the French Riviera. I'm Phil Liggett reporting from the Nice International Triathlon, an event in its 7th year and now regarded as one of the top 3 in the world. More than 700 athletes from 23 nations, among them 34 women, face a course longer and tougher than ever before. The race begins with a 4 kilometers swim, a full kilometer longer than previously in the Mediterranean Sea. From the Bay of Angels to the hills of the Maritime Alps for the 120 kilometers bike ride over the toughest course in the world. It's a time when the locals keep the kids off the roads. The race ends with the run along the seafront past Nice Airport, a 32-kilometer round trip to end a hard day. As always, the top triathletes are in town. The number 1 is Scott Tinley from the United States. 4 times in the top 3, never the winner. With 90 minutes still to go to the start, Tinley makes sure he's ready. Scott Molina, another American, has twice finished second and once third. Victory also eludes him. He wins mostly in America, so how different is a European event?
It's much different. They allow a lot more vehicles on the course in Europe. They allow a lot more bicycle traffic, mopeds. There's a lot more traffic in general. The roads are a lot more difficult.
Leading the European Challenge is Dutchman Rob Barel, who has won 17 times already this year and is one of the few who can be favoured among the Americans. This race, by the way, has never been won by a European. France has a favourite too in Yves Cordier, a resident here in Nice. Last year he was a spectator after breaking his collarbone. Rumours are he's back on form. Among the women, the strong favourite is New Zealand's Erin Baker. She won in 1985 but was disqualified controversially in 1986 after she received unofficial help along the route from her sister. Because of this, she gave Nice a miss last year.
Can't look back at bad business decisions, and that, perhaps was one for me or whatever else, but I think this is a great race. It's probably the course that I like the most in the world, so as I said, it's the best thing for me to be here, and I just look forward to race day.
Baker's closest challenger should be old rival Colleen Cannon from the United States. The two are good friends and train together, but Cannon aims to repeat her win here 4 years ago. And here's the girl who's tipped to head the European Challenge against America and New Zealand. She's Sarah Coote from Sussex in England. Sarah was second in 1986 and's been a professional now for 3 years. With so many competitors, getting them ready can be a problem. But here, in Nice, there are 2,000 volunteers to make sure everyone is ready on time. And in a sport where no help is allowed and food and drink can only be taken from the official aid stations, the preparations before the off are both meticulous and absolutely vital. With the water at its warmest for years, the race is ready to start as 9 o'clock approaches. Safety precautions are evident. For the serious competitors, the prize list of $75,000 is their target, with the best man winning $12,000 and the best woman $11,000. There's even a Veterans Award as well, but for all of the entries, the real target is to finish. That in itself, the great achievement in the eyes of most who take part. This began as an all-American sport. Now everyone, it seems, enjoys it. Yes, the voice of René Tremoni says just 2 minutes to go to the start of the 1988 Nice International Triathlon. So the Bay of Angels in France's millionaire resort of Nice is ready to receive more than 700 athletes in the 7th Nice International Triathlon. And facing each one a 4-kilometer swim around a bay notorious for its undercurrents and stinging jellyfish.
Absolument fabuleuse, le triathlète qui vient de prendre le départ pour 4 km, oui 4 km dans cette Méditerranée aujourd'hui à 21 degrés 6. Je tiens à vous rappeler bien sûr que
The mass start is always spectacular, with the favoured triathletes given seeded front positions. But the first few hundred meters are crucial to any with ambition of winning the long day over 6 hours.
Ces premiers 800 mètres, après ces 800 mètres, je vous explique, ils tourneront autour du Coué, ils seront un parcours de 1450.
And it's a lot longer, by the way, for others who aren't here to win.
Et de là, ils retourneront autour du Coué, reviendront tout le long de plage, le Florida, le Poilier, le Forum, le Neptune, le Blue Beach, le Sporting, pour arriver à Pellegrino jusqu'ici, au Rude. Voilà.
Gradually, as progress is made towards the first turn buoy, the strong swimmers begin to make their point, caring little, it seems, for the 120 kilometres bike ride still to follow. Yves Cordier back to prove a point as well. He's always been noted for his strong swim, and with arms beating the blue Mediterranean, is soon in the lead. While Cordier was moving smoothly ahead, Scott Tinley, just a month away from his 32nd birthday, was not making his usual good start. The other famous Scot, Molina, is also making a slow start, less confident perhaps after failing to finish last year. American first-timer in Nice, Karen Smyers, was off to a good start. She was in second place in the women's race. And another newcomer to the Nice race doing well was Jan Wankling from Australia. The 30-years-old physical education teacher was heading the women brilliantly. The first buoy after 800 metres is reached first by 2 Frenchmen, Laurent Bernard in front and Yves Cordier. The third man is Rob Barrel. Colleen Cannon, the winner in 1984, was not among the pace setters in the women as she made her way toward the half-distance mark. But Mandy Dean certainly was, as she was now completing the group of 4 leading girls. She's in the pink cap, by the way. And if Erin Baker has any weak spot, then it's in the swim. And although she was pleased with her start, the top girls are being headed by Jan Wankling. There was a great battle between 3 men for the lead, and Yves Cordier, nearest our camera in the blue cap, was sharing it with Laurent Bernard, another Frenchman, while Rob Barrel was not far behind for Holland in 3rd place. The The leaders were now heading across towards the second buoy, having reached the farthest point from the shore. This will be followed by a short 150 meters straight towards the shoreline before the turn will be made for home. Then they'll swim parallel with the shore to our right as we see it. Jan Wankling continues to swim strongly, staying ahead of some of the best men, including the top favourite, Scott Tinley. Rob Burrell, with 17 wins this season, but none over the distance of this event, continues on in third place. He was swimming in the wake of Laurent Bernard and the rejuvenated Yves Cordier, not only carrying the hopes of the home city, but he was also being sponsored by them. There was still a good battle between the women too, and about a minute behind Jan Wankling came Karen Smyers. She's nearest the camera. Mandy Dean, the 27-year-old from Port Elizabeth, on the far side. But there was no disputing the dominant woman in the water, and Australian Jan Wankling had no contemporary. In fact, only a few of the men were matching her. The second buoy is reached with Cordier still battling stroke for stroke with Laurent Bernard. Rob Burrell and the Englishman now, Glenn Cook, has come up into fourth place. But while the leaders do battle, spare a thought for those along for just the fun of it all. The Nice International Triathlon continues towards the end of the opening 4 kilometers swim. With four men, Laurent Bernard, Yves Cordier, Rob Burrell and Glenn Cook locked together in a dash for the shore. It's Jan Wankling who has a clear lead among the women. The battle for second place among the women in this first of three tests of strength and courage today is still between American Karen Smyers and Mandy Dean. The woman missing from the action is New Zealand's hot favourite Erin Baker. She's swimming almost 2 minutes now behind the runaway leader Jan Wankling, who in turn is ahead of these two by a generous 90 seconds. The men remain deadlocked as, in synchronised motion, Cordier and Bernard share the lead. Rob Burrell and Glenn Cook are not far behind, and not an American challenge in sight yet. Meanwhile, in amongst the men is Jan Wankling, setting a time for the swim most men would be proud of. Here she's alongside Canada's top man, Andrew McNaughton, in the blue cap. Mandy Dean and Karen Smyers still contest second and third places further back along the shoreline. It was Mandy Dean, wearing 96, 2 weeks away from her 27th birthday, who set the pace. After 3/4 of an hour in the water, four men returned well ahead of the 700 plus who had set off. And it was to be a good start for France and Nice, because local man Yves Cordier, they call him the Sun Prince, was ahead. Running for the shore and the waiting bicycles, the order was Cordier, Bernard, Cook and Burrell. Through the freshwater shower, in triathlons there's no time to stop. Now Cordier is heading to the transitional area, where from a swimmer he will become a cyclist, facing 120 kilometers in the Maritime Alps behind Nice. Just before 10 o'clock, the autumn sun warmed the appreciative crowd as they cheered a Frenchman through first. Cordier, by the way, has been first out of the water before, but this time there was the feeling things would be different. Last time he had a terrible bike ride. Rob Burrell from Amsterdam, where cycling is a popular pastime, should be looking forward to the next leg. Quick changing is an art, and now you can see why earlier the athletes took a lot of time placing their clothes in order on the ground. It's a good change for Burrell, and he's away quickly. Cordier may have been out of the water first, but his change was a lot slower. Glenn Cook had also done well in the transition. At 25, Cook is one of Britain's best triathletes and one of only a handful of professionals. Behind the early leaders, the rest of the men in contention leave the water. Fifth out of the water was Herbert Rattensperger from Austria, and sixth was Philippe Mentio. The French were having a good day. Scott Molina was eighth, with Kenny Glaw just behind. The American challenge was still there. One challenge expected but not yet apparent was from Erin Baker. She was fourth of the girls, but a long way behind as she struck out for the beach. Without doubt, the champion woman of the opening contest was Australian Jan Wanklin. Not only had Jan reached the shore minutes in front of the other women, but she was an incredible 20th from the whole field, men included. A perfect start for her. Jan heads into the transition. Her time of 48 minutes and 4 seconds for the 4 kilometers was 6 seconds better than superstar Scott Tinley. The bicycles, checked by officials, have been held in this secure area all night, and now with the hilly course waiting high above the River Var, the second leg of this long day is ready to begin. A change of clothes, Jan Wanklin sets off, seemingly in no hurry for her appointment with the mountains. Almost 2 minutes behind Jan, Mandy Dean runs in as the second woman to come out of the swim. Just near the end, Mandy Dean had moved clear of Karen Smyers in the water, but Karen is still the third best. Erin Baker is fourth, and although she is pleased with her swim, she's still over 2 minutes behind Jan Wanklin. The world's best female triathlete now has a lot to do. But this has not been a good transition for Mandy Dean, and she's wasted time. Erin Baker hasn't, and even before the ride begins, she's already closed the gap on Mandy Dean. Now, let the ride commence. Nice playing host to one of the toughest sporting endurance tests in the world, the International Triathlon. A modern town which has not forgotten its character, steadily developed since Roman times. After the swim, New Zealand's Erin Baker was in fourth place, but soon she caught Mandy Dean to move into third. In the men's event, France were back on top, and Yves Cordier, passed by Burrell in the transition, had regained the lead and was heading into the Maritime Alps with confidence. The heavy breathing is from Rob Burrell, fourth in the swim, but now having to fight back again. Burrell knows these roads well as Cordier, who lives here. mountains were changing things fast. Baker passes swim star Jan Wanklin. Now she had the lead, but there was still a long way to go. Cordier still leads the men, but a glance across the valley and Burrell is not losing too much ground. The Americans were still out of touch, but Scott Molina, who loves the bike section, was fighting back. Here he's caught Andrew McNaughton, who finished 35th a year ago when Molina gave up. On narrow roads that can prove dangerous, McNaughton goes ahead again. If a rider stays with another rider, he could be disqualified in this very individual sport. Then, on a descent, Burrell had reacted brilliantly to the terrain. Cordier was seen for the first time since the Var Valley, and Cordier, the man they call the Sun Prince, had company. This is the most difficult terrain in the world of triathlons for cycling, and if you are good on it, then you really can make up ground. And Burrell was quick to go over the shoulder there of Yves Cordier. Cordier offered no resistance. Burrell makes his descent a little uncertain. He goes down the hill behind the police. And this year, for safety reasons, the mountain roads have been closed to other traffic, and so all that Burrell could see in front of him was the road ahead. So far, little had been seen of Scott Tinley, but Scott, also a good cyclist, was getting into his stride. His 6 years as a professional has taught him not to panic. He was racing back onto the leaderboard. By the way, Tinley always brings his wife and baby daughter to races these days, so what does Virginia do while Scott's away having fun?
Well, in the olden days, before I had Tori, I used to finagle my way on a crest vehicle, and I'd go out and I'd try to watch the race. But now that I have her, it's kind of a long day to expect her to be out on the course. So I stay in the transition area and watch the beginning of the swim and the end of the bike and the start of the run, and take care of her needs.
Well, there was certainly no need to take care of Ellen Baker's needs. She was doing all right alone, building a clear lead. Mandy Dean, passed earlier by Erin, was now 8 minutes behind her, but still in second place. Our third spot was now Sarah Coop, the English hope who's held all of the British national titles. She was catching Mandy Dean. But for others, though, life is not so rewarding, especially if your shoes are screwed to the pedals. Nice in bare feet is a long way away. The Nice Triathlon had now transferred its battleground to the peaks of the Alpes Maritimes above Nice, and the Dutchman Rob Burrell, who took the lead on the lower slopes of the climbs, away from the Frenchman Yves Cordier, was still ahead. Missing was the expected challenge from the United States, and in answer to this, the big guns from America were beginning to fire behind. Americans Scott Tinley and Brad Kearns on the inside were moving up, with the emphasis on Tinley nearest the camera. The ominous shadow of Scott Molina, recovering well in the Alps. He's fourth here, but very soon he'll have caught Andrew McNaughton, who's just in front at the moment. Yves Cordier, deposed of the lead, was still in second place. And Molina catches McNaughton. He's now third. Meanwhile, Erin Baker, she's in the lead all alone. She's passing the men now. Behind Erin Baker in the women's section, Colleen Cannon had moved up to third place. She'd passed Sarah Coop. And Mandy Dean, passed early in the riding section by Baker, had not faltered since. Other front-runners in the swim, Karen Smyers and Jan Wanklin, had dropped away from the leaders. Burrell had completed an excellent second leg, and with the run to come, he was the first to return to the Promenade des Anglais. It's now almost 4 hours since the race began. Frenchman Cordier is still in contention. He remains second, but the run is not his strongest discipline.
Il arrive à tenir au parade. Il est merveilleux, regardez-le. Absolument, il a déjà fait les qualités. Top intermédiaire. En 58 minutes et 52 secondes, il est passé 3h50.
And with the inexhaustible Monsieur Tramini enjoying his own marathon on the microphone, Burrell is first back to the transition. And this time it's to make ready for the 32 kilometers run. He doesn't wait long. And to the cheers of a happy crowd, the prospect now of the first European winner of this event was being contemplated. As he starts his run, the Frenchman Yves Cordier heads home and will end the bike ride in second place, but over 7 minutes behind the Dutch leader. After Cordier, Scott Molina goes through. He continues his steady recovery and that of the American challenge. And in the women's section, Erin Baker was well in command. In fact, heading for the end of the bike race in 25th position on the road, ahead of hundreds of the men who had started. It was quite remarkable, although the men might not admit it.
Voilà, Jean-Paul et Claudie, les applaudissements de la foule pour Yves Cordier qui en tout cas a donné le spectacle extraordinaire. On va continuer un top.
Not surprisingly, Yves Cordier, born in Paris but who now lives in Nice, received a special welcome. He came home in second place, his best position at this stage of the triathlon ever. Now the question was, had Scott Molina managed to close the gap? And the answer was, he had. 8th out of the sea, over a minute behind Burrell and Cordier, the American professional was fighting back. He was third now on Cordier's tail, but still 8 minutes behind the leader, Burrell. They used to call Scott Molina the mercenary in triathlons because he used to race purely for all the money he could win. Now he has to measure his effort and choose the right events. Cordier has gone, and Molina, who began his sporting life as a swimmer, now prefers to ride and run. That could be bad news for the Frenchman. Three men so far have gone, and now the fourth man is arriving. It's Andrew McNaughton from Canada, who's also enjoyed his journey through the lower Alps. He's recovered up to fourth place and ridden 120 kilometers in the third best time. But still out on the course, Erin Baker is the most feared and respected of women triathletes. And with a time of 3 hours, 32 minutes for the ride, only the best men were to prove faster. One top name who was still to finish was Scott Tinley. He came home in 5th place, but 10 minutes behind Burrell. For the Dutchman, a win looked good now. Last year, Molina did not finish, and in 1986 he did, as they say, hit the wall in the 32 kilometers run. He almost didn't finish as he walked and ran exhausted, but times have changed for the better. Here now he passes Cordier to go second. Burrell is still 6 minutes ahead. The long run comes at the height of the day and in warm temperatures. Fatigue can and has arrived fast. Ask Scott Molina, or maybe even Rob Burrell, because indications were soon clear he was slowing down, although his face gave nothing away. Chasing Erin Baker all the way home, Mandy Dean was second in the women's race, but over 17 minutes behind the flying New Zealander. As Erin Baker came towards the end of the bicycle ride, the third girl from America, Colleen Cannon, was over 20 minutes back. Baker, now changed into her more familiar garb of pink, was the First Lady home and the First Lady away. In her case, only second place was open to challenge, with the run now to come. Scott Tinley, the next American to move towards the leaders, is now fourth. And Scott Molina, he's moved from 8th in the swim to 2nd in the run. He's already passed Yves Cordier of France. But time is running out, and the man they must catch is the Flying Dutchman, Rob Burrell. Erin Baker, she's running away with the women's section, almost 20 minutes ahead of the next girl on the road. So, as the Nice International Triathlon continues towards the halfway point in the 32 kilometers run, Burrell holds off the American challenge from Scott Molina and Scott Tinley. But the French challenge from Yves Cordier at least seems to be over. No Europeans ever won the Nice race in its 7 years. Mark Allen from America won the first 5, and last year it was New Zealander Rick Wells. The veterans had their race too, and their own special prize list for some very exceptional aging riders. Burrell was at the final turn of the day. All that was ahead now, as he turned for home, was the long hot trip back along the bay to the finish on the Promenade des Anglais. But the signs were there, and Burrell was not safe yet. On the other side of the road and closing an original 8-minute gap with surprising speed was Scott Molina. And on this course, both knew exactly the gap between them. But the drama developing at the front only matched the personal dramas of those with only a finish in mind. This man had broken his pedal, and no help is allowed. It's worth remembering at this point 2 years ago, Molina lost the race when he was forced to stop. This time, followed like the Pied Piper, he was being drawn towards Burrell by an incredible fight back. Sarah Coupe had improved to second place among the women after she'd completed the bike course in 5th. She was having a marvellous run. Another fight back came from Australian Jan Wanklin, who had taken a back seat in the bike ride after an outstanding swim. Now she was again a challenger and up into third place ahead of Colleen Cannon. Cannon, winner in 1984, fourth in 1985 and second last year, was considered to be Erin Baker's main opponent, but no one was getting even close. Erin, who only started triathlons in 1984 to get fit again, was proving a cool and untouchable competitor, proving beyond doubt that she can win without her sister's help, minimal as it was 2 years ago. Burrell was still ahead, with about 12 kilometers left to run. But Molina's relentless comeback had reduced the battle to just a couple of minutes. Burrell could be caught. In triathlon, Molina is one of the big four. The others are Tinley, Mark Allen and Dave Scott. By Nice Airport, Yves Cordier was also reduced to a survivor. He'd been passed by Scott Tinley and was back in fourth place. While others struggled on with a grim determination, the Nice Triathlon was beginning to experience its best ever finish in 7 years. The battle between Rob Burrell and Scott Molina was reaching its height, and Burrell was now the one in trouble. There was time to take a drink and a walk, but not much. Molina was closing in, and Burrell was looking less like the winner now. Molina, carrying all of America's hopes of stopping the first ever European win, was on a high. 8 minutes behind as the run began, he was now closing and could see Burrell in the distance. From the helicopter, the two were separated by seconds, but the finish was upon them. None too soon for Burrell, who had reached his limit. Monsieur Timony, still at it after 6 hours non-stop commentary, called Burrell towards the line. Someone had given him the orange ribbon of Holland, the first European country ever to win the Nice Triathlon. The last climb of the day, and Burrell, twice the European champion, had at last won the Nice race. The 28-year-old, third in 1985, had lived up to his reputation as the best triathlete in Europe. But what a finish it had been, and Scott Molina, twice second behind Mark Allen, was now second again behind Burrell. But his run was exceptional. 7 minutes faster than Burrell's, Molina finished the 32 kilometers inside 2 hours. He ended just 36 seconds behind Burrell. Another 1,000 meters, and the result might have been different. New Zealand's ex-radiographer Erin Baker was under no such pressures, except to beat as many men as possible. She was heading for a resounding victory. And Jan Wanklin was continuing her recovery in third place, but over 30 minutes behind Erin Baker. And up ahead of both girls, Scott Tinley, beaten by Wanklin out of the water, had recovered well to finish third in the men's race. Tinley, like Molina, had saved the reputations of the Big Four with good second halves. Tinley, 5 minutes faster than Burrell in the run, was still 7 minutes behind the Flying Dutchman.
Voilà, à ses admirateurs, à la presse qui est là, Scott Tinley, merveilleux champion.
But the big cheers were for the Niçois Yves Cordier, his best ever finish in 4th place. And after the win, it was below the Promenade des Anglais where the pain was eased out of the body of the new Nice champion. And not far away, the Americans, Tinley and Molina, discussed their defeat.
At the top of the hill. When they're not caught yet? Going into Triathlon. No. Before the descent. Before the descent. Yeah, 10 seconds behind. And I looked back and I saw you. And then we went down to Triathlon. You put 2 minutes down to Triathlon, and then another minute to that.
I had a magnificent season this year. I had 17 victories already this year, but this one is the best one of my whole career since 1982. I'm really psyched up and happy, and standing here makes me feel great. Don't ask me to run, that will be very hard, but usually comes the next day where you start, feeling a little headache and very lazy, but I think I've deserved that.
Didn't he just? Rob Burrell won in 6 hours, 5 minutes and 6 seconds, beating 2 of America's best, Scott Molina and Scott Tinley, with Cordier in 4th place. Now stay with us and we'll bring the women home. The legs of Erin Baker, backed with a vengeance in the Nice International Triathlon, disqualified on her last visit. This time she came back to prove a point, and she was doing it. Leading the next girl on the road by well in excess of half an hour, she approached the finish on the Promenade des Anglais. The most amazing fact was that Erin Baker was finishing 11th on the course out of the more than 700 athletes, mostly men, who had set off over 6 hours before. She had proved now without doubt she was the greatest female triathlete ever. So Erin Baker, with hardly anybody to help her, heads off towards the massage parlour. Not even time for a smile. Thank you. And below, the doctors make the checkup. What's the heartbeat?
88. Not too bad. Thank you. Where do we go? The dosing control? Inside. Inside? Okay. On right. Okay. Thank you. Scott got third? Oh, good.
Rob had a great race.
How much did Rob win by?
I think just a minute.
Oh, really? Scott was pitching him.
Yeah.
Was this a day when everything came together at the same time, did you feel?
Yeah, it has been though for over the last 2 or 3 weeks, so that everything's been going right, but the only thing that I did extra well now, I swam well, which I haven't been doing so well in the last few races, and so that got me off to a good start. And then I really like hilly bike courses. It really suits me to be in the hills, and I suppose my run was really good as well, which was a lot faster than I've ever run here before, so I must be in form.
But there was still drama further back down the course. Sarah Coupe was still in 2nd place, but she was seemingly now terribly, terribly tired. She was running, in fact, not on the actual course, but down the promenade itself. And Jan Wanklin had seen the difficulty that Coupe was in. She was closing quickly. She'd recovered really well from the bike ride. The run for her had been absolutely marvellous. She points out as if to say, is that Coupe in front? And there is Sarah Coupe, completely fatigued, more interested now in a cooling sponge than taking second place. A consolation pat on the back from the rejuvenated Australian, Jan Wanklin. She's now in second place. And Sarah Coupe, still trying to survive to the finish, knows that Colleen Cannon is now just over a minute behind her. At the finish, Jan Wanklin, first out of the sea this morning, lost ground on the bike ride, fought back in the run to finish second. But she finished 40 minutes behind Erin Baker.
Bloody well done, Clover.
Thank you.
And the special kiss from Rob Burrell. And I think everybody should reserve a round of applause too for Sarah Coupe. Completely fatigued now. She only just made the ramp. No one must touch her, and she says so, until she's over that line. Sarah Coupe had given her all, but I'm happy to say that she recovered quickly and was delighted with her third place. Erin Baker, of course, was the winner. Jan Wanklin was second, and Colleen Cannon came home fourth. So the leading girls were home, but the Nice Triathlon was far from over. As the stragglers come home, it's easy to see how tough a sporting event the triathlon really is. Hervé Niquet from France was third last year. This year he struggled to finish 96th. A cooling dip in the Mediterranean is all that some need now to put them on the road to recovery, while others just sit it out at milestone 13, hoping someone picks them up. And if you don't go by car, then you can always walk. Officially, the race ends at 5:30 in the evening, and that's 8.5 hours after it all began. In theory, anyone still out on the course is disqualified. But while Nice reverts to its normal way of life and the night time draws in, the backmarkers will continue to finish. And no matter how long it takes, to them, the finish is all important. And this is the last man home. It's almost 8 o'clock in the evening. Michel Daix of France comes in 4.5 hours after Rob Burrell, 4 hours after Erin Baker. But he's just as much a winner as the winners. From the Nice International Triathlon, from me, Phil Liggett, goodbye.